Okay, welcome again to Fit Conversation, fearless, intentional, and transformational conversation. I am your host, Anthony Payton, pastor, teacher of Come As You Are Community Church. And on our last installment, we had the honor of having two men with us who have been such a blessing to my life. And as I said last week, I hope I've been the same to theirs. And we started down this path of talking about some of the challenges facing the African American church, the church in general, but African American church in particular, as it relates to leadership and this new generation of leaders, both in the pews and in the pulpit. Today, we would like to pick up on that conversation and kind of wrap it up in this second session. And so, Pastor Lynch, the last time we were together, you was talking about some of the challenges, and Jack, you too was talking about some of these challenges, and you highlighted that you believe that one of the chief needs today for your generation is understanding doctrine. As Dr. Robert Smith says, doctrine that dance, to have a firm hold on the faith, as Paul said, able to give a reason for the hope that lies within you. And Pastor Lynch, you talked about some of the things that you believe has been strong for us as a church, as Come As You Are, and you talked about, me being discipled, how that played out and providing a firm foundation for the people that are part of this ministry and beyond. In this session, what I'd like to focus in on three things. Here's what I've learned. I was reading a Harvard review some time ago, and they said that 70% of millennials was already in a leadership position, but they were failing because they were never mentored. And I think when we look at the aging of our churches and the traditional structure thereof, there is no succession plan. Everybody is, not to say everybody, many leaders are living like what I call, like they think they're Highlanders. If you remember Highlanders from the movie Highlander, the only way you could kill a Highlander is what? Cut the head off. They believed they had eternal life, that they were going to live forever, as the theme song goes. There can only be one, And as a result of that and the traditions that we have, churches have a tendency in our community, if they don't die with the leader, they struggle for years after to find their purpose again. How do you think that plays out? What do you think we need to do to change that culture? Especially coming from your generation, Jack.
I think, I don't mean to make this sound like it's an attack on our leaders, but I think they have to realize that it's more than about just them. One of the things that I've heard you specifically say since I've been here in the 13 years that I've been here is that I do whatever I can to work myself out of a job. And because of that reason, you're always looking for the next pastor or the next lead deacon or the next leader of the nursery. It's not just about necessarily the headship of the church, but in all aspects, you look for, okay, who's next? When Mama Joyce is done leading the kids, what comes after Mama Joyce? Now, she's been here for eons and she's still standing strong, but you're always looking for what's next because you don't operate out of a church is just me mentality. And I think, especially in the Black church, there is an arrogance that comes with pastoralship. That if it isn't about me and if it isn't my word and if it isn't my decision, if it isn't the vision that I've casted, then it shouldn't go forth. So I think we have to get out of this ego mindset of making it about us and getting it back to, okay, no matter if I'm the pastor or whatever ministerial leadership role I may be in, there is still a head above me. And once we start operating as if like no matter where I am in the ministry ranking, there's still a head to the head.
Okay.
I think we have to start honoring God as the head again.
I think if Jesus had a succession plan, we need to have one. Jesus had a succession plan. He said, I'm gonna spend 3 years with y'all, get y'all ready. I'm gonna give you what you need. I'm gonna give you me when I'm gone, but you gotta do greater works. So Jesus had a succession plan. Every leader in church should have a succession plan, whether he is in the pulpit or he's serving in the nursery, etc. Every leader has to be working him or herself out of a job, and principally by getting the next person ready.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, but I think what has hindered us from being able to do that, we had never seen it.
Major.
And so
major.
I was in Brunswick, Georgia. I can't think. Ahmaud Arbery was killed, and pastors from all over the country came in because the prosecuting attorney said he didn't want. The defendant's attorney said he didn't want no more black pastors coming. And so we bust in, we flew in, and it's about 800 pastors out in front of the building. And all we kept hearing while we're doing the press conference is someone keeps saying, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And they're trying to push somebody to the front. And to my pain to tell you, it was the Reverend Jesse Jackson. With 800 leaders, they moved them out of the way to bring him to the front. At this age, he should really be sitting and saying, go ahead. But they moved leaders aside, pushed them back to get him in the front. We never seen it. We haven't seen it in civil rights. We've never seen it, even in entertainment. Bobby Brown can't dance like he used to, but they're still taking dates. Meaning it's something about our culture that says that we can't quit. And secession does not mean quitting, it means transferring. Because that's what's going on here. It's literally a transfer of power. And so we've never seen it. We never seen it. And just deal with Fort Wayne. The Reverend, the late Dr. Jesse White, he died in it. Dr. J.W. Bledsoe, he died in it. The only one that we can think of, honestly, would be the late Dr. Clyde Adams, that had a secession plan. The Reverend Michael Latham. Think about all the young Democrats that's raising up now, but they have to wait until Glenn Hines die before they can run. Because if
he's
they
not running this time, he's not running.
Oh, okay. See,
Yeah.
see, I think you was going there. I'm trying to get the views going now. They have to wait for someone to move. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so that's what's causing a head-on collision with the old and the young, because it's people that's being raised up now that's ready, but they have to sit on the sideline and wait for the person that's on the court to come to the sideline to sit down.
I think I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with much of what you said.
Just a little bit.
Here's what I would what is my caveat to that? I think that we have to have a mindset, those of us in my generation, have to have a mindset where we see it is important for me to introduce this young leader to the world. I have to introduce him or her to the stage. I have to pour into them, give them what they need in order for them to be ready for the stage and to have longevity on the stage.
I agree with that.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The reason why, if that doesn't happen, there's going to be more empty churches because these young preachers and, that's in ministry, they're not going to wait for.
No, they're not. They're not going to wait. And I'm not saying that they should wait. Here's what I'm saying is that senior pastors has to see that as a part of their legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it is important for me, for my legacy, for what God has called me to do in order to do that. Not when I want to 10 years beyond the point. You know what I'm saying?
With nothing left.
Yeah, with nothing left. I done ran everybody away because I can't remember what I'm preaching about. So this person is by mandate or default, because I didn't do my job, has to go and start something in order to do what God called him to do or she to do. And here's why I say that is important. I teach this everywhere I go, because I love the study of words. Do we know where the word mentor comes from? And it comes from Odysseus. It comes from the Odyssey. It comes from where Odysseus leaves his house to go fight in the Trojan War. And he's gone for years. And even after the war is over, it takes him years to get home. His son is a baby when he leaves. He leaves his son to a trusted slave to raise because he's going to be away so long. By the time Odysseus makes it back home, guess what? His son is a grown man who's now looking for him. The slave that he leaves his son's life and care to is named Mentor.
Oh, that's his name.
Yeah.
That's dope. I never heard of it. That was dope.
I heard this story before.
No, I ain't heard of
I
it.
heard you tell him.
That is that's the etymology. Odysseus leaves his son to his trusted slave whose name is Mentor. And when he comes back, his son's a grown man. His son is a healthy, grown man who is responsible and now has started the journey of looking for his father while his father is on his way home to see his son. And I think that's what we miss here in this whole mentoring piece. My job is to get you ready to meet your father. My job is to introduce you to that stage so that you're ready. And a part of you being ready to meet your father is making sure that I gave you everything I was on my assignment to give you so that you can hear him say, well done, thy good and faithful servant. And that is such a critical part of legacy. But when you don't have that framework, you build a kingdom to yourself that does not transfer into the next generation of leaders. And the second piece of this, I think, and you and I've talked about this sometime, I think it is incumbent up on that mentoree, if you would, to put himself in a position to be father. Here's what I learned. I never forget this. The gentleman that led me to the Christ took me to the Greyhound bus station in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, paid for a one-way bus ticket for me to come to Fort Wayne to go to school. Okay. The last words he said to me before I got on that bus, he said, Anthony, I need to share this with you. I'm buying you a one-way bus ticket. I don't want you back here. You have to make a decision in 3 areas of your life. I said, Buck, okay, this is a Marine that led me to the Lord. So I said, okay, what is it? What is it? He said, you have to watch out. Be careful of gold, girls, and glory. You can't get so wrapped up in your success that you see only the money. You can't get so wrapped up in what God uses you to do that you only see your own glory. And you can't get so wrapped up that you become another Solomon that only is concerned about the girls. And with that, he put me on the Greyhound bus to come to Fort Wayne. And I'm telling you, there was something ominous about that statement that still sticks with me.
Wow.
That I still hear him say that to me.
Wow.
So at the height of success, when everybody knows my name, I don't clip out clippings about me. I have maybe before he passed, everything I ever done that made any newspaper, magazine, anything, if I got a plaque, I sent it to him. The only plaques I have now is plaques that I've gathered that I've received since he's been gone. Wow. Because I wanted to stay away from glory. I wanted to make sure that money wasn't the motivation. You know, and I think that in this mentoring process, in order for a person to be successful in leadership, they have to have somebody in their life that is fathering them in their turn.
And when you see more scandals now,
Right.
they come from at least two of those,
Yes, they do.
girls and gold.
And gold.
Yeah.
Girls and gold.
This is the benefit that you have with Jack, is that is a lot that he's seen, but it, on the other hand, is a lot that he have not seen.
Amen.
When you were under the late Bishop Jesse White, he didn't take you to the convention.
No, he didn't.
So all the stories you hear, you don't know nothing about it.
Know nothing about him.
You don't know nothing about the girls.
The gold.
You don't know nothing about the gold or the glory. You probably seen the glory on a local level,
Yeah.
but you've never been exposed to it. And so I'm sitting here thinking that if someone could have set me down at the very beginning of this, I started preaching, Jack, in Muncie, Indiana. I was living in Muncie, but Richmond, Indiana, under Corey Brooks. As soon as I got called to preach, he left and went to Chicago. So you never knew that, did you?
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
I mean, as soon as I did a trial sermon, and at least 3 to 4 weeks later, he was gone. So I never had the opportunity to be at a place and someone to call me mentor. I'm going back to that story tonight. So I ain't never known nothing about that. I ain't know nothing about no spiritual father, covered and all that. I'm like, who gonna be the pastor? You know, church vacant. We don't have a pastor. And so his first week gone, I'm a young 16, 17-year-old kid. They said, you're an associate minister, you preach this week. My dad, who was big to me, Corey Brooks, he left. So what you're getting in those lessons, and even though I've been here and connected, and I've heard, you know, you've been trying to keep me on the right track, but the world was calling me. It was calling me. So if I didn't want to be here, I can go down the street. And so that's where we got to get back to, because there was a time that you couldn't leave a church. Because if you left, they was going to call the church where you was going to and let them know, no, he's been set down, and they honor that. And that goes back to sound doctrine and teaching and character and integrity. And so I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, if I could have had a buck in my life that had said, hey, Lynch, before you make a move, it's 3 areas. And I'm thinking like all 3 of those areas is where I have found myself in the lights. Because 1, girls. 2, gold. Tell you something, man. Am I okay?
Yeah, you good. You good.
The girls thing, we already know that's Lynch 10 and 10. That's my scripture, right? But the gold, man, sometimes is the motivation for the girls. Because everybody that hits this stage, they believe that it's gold attached to it.
Yeah, that's right, Reverend. Preach, Reverend.
You know what I'm saying? And so even though I'm pastoring a little Baptist church that's barely taking in $675, I was only making $125 a week. But I got to figure out how. So I started doing conferences. March Gladness was birthed for gold. You know what I'm saying? So I'm bringing them all the time. Whoever was hitting at that hour, Marvin Sapp, I didn't care about never would have made it. Or he saw the best in me. I wanted to make it. You know, so, and that's the benefit, man, that you're really in a place where a lot of preachers have never been in, unfortunately, and they don't even know what it feels like to be in the seat that you're in. Because everything they had to fight, they had to manipulate, scheme to get in that place. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I will say this, because although I am, a few years younger than your senior and many years younger than your senior.
You have to remind me.
I grew up in church, and so I saw a lot personally, and in relation to my family, but also I saw a lot. I have saw a lot in church. But one thing, if I can use this word, I prided myself on is my ability to see things and realize them for what they are and not go that direction. Now, that's also easier said than done in many cases, and sometimes I fail, but I will say, since I've gotten here and gotten the mentorship of Pastor Anthony Payton, that it has steered the ship a lot of times when I was going the wrong way. And just knowing that he can plant the right seed. Whenever I'm going the wrong direction and he can vouch for this, I'll call him. I'm like, hey, Doc, I'm about to jump off this ledge. He's like, oh, no, you're not. Oh, no, you're not. And he'll let me go off on my little spat. And then when I'm done, he's like, are you done? And he's like, okay, now let me tell you something. And so that mentor piece, that piece where it's like that person in your life that can speak those valuable seeds of life when it feels like those roots are getting suffocated, it has been valuable. But the other piece is I am conscious enough of self to know that I have to call them. A lot of times for the mentee, we aren't cognizant that I'm about to go down this road. And so we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to, because we are most of the time we're so connected to our flesh. And not even just the girls, not even the money. Sometimes it's just a bad decision of going to the wrong place. And I've always had the ability to say, I know I'm about to do the wrong thing. And I thank God that he's given me that, because I know it comes from him. But it's also having the right mentor. And so I value, you're absolutely right. I value that.
One of the things that I can appreciate with what you just said is, I almost wish I could just step off the stage at this very moment and let you, from your seasoned position as a pastor and your personal experiences with the highs and lows of that, and some of the self-inflicted wounds and some of those that have been thrusted upon you by others who saw you as a threat because you just talented, you just gift. I wish I could step out and just let you talk to him, and say to him those things. But I'm going to sit here in the middle, and I want you to finish that train of thought in terms of what he needs to hear from someone who has the totality of your experience. And not from a 65-year-old, but you. If you had, let's say if you had one thing that you would say to him in this position that he's in now, what would you say?
Jack moments ago brought up the word doctrine, one of my heroes of doctrinal preaching. is the late Dr. Adrian Rogers. And
I hear where you're going already.
it's not his preaching is not exciting, but it has substance. And he says this, and I say this all the time, that in life you can make whatever decision you want to make. Is up to you. We are all free moral agents. If you decide to go to the party, that's your decision. By all means, go. If you decide that you want to have a wife and a girlfriend, that's your decision. Head out. But the only thing, you cannot make the consequence of your decision. And every decision, it brings about a consequence. And reality is, I was just thinking on my way here, and I know we was gonna eventually have this conversation, and I told a young lady today, maybe where I'm at now in ministry is to just be a person of warning. And just say that you don't have to do it this way. I was here at the height of Cummins Yard. I'm talking about, y'all doing it now, but brother, in 2007, it was a problem on this corner, brother. And I remember, I'm talking about churches merging, and he doing his own business. Majority of the salaries was never coming out of the top. He was paying the salaries. I'm talking about at the height of ministry, that he taught then and spoke a word over this house that this church will be a model. And everybody won't adhere to a model. They want to create their own thing. I could have been in your seat. I'm talking to you, you stole my job. Kim think he was be next. No. So the opportunity, man, I've made so many mistakes, Doc, that if I can change it now, I would, but unfortunately, it's too late. All you can do, Mama's right. When you make a bed, you gotta lay in it. And guess what? But she didn't tell me this. I'ma lay in it, but I'ma change the sheets first. So things that I would do, I'm talking to a lady on the phone before I got here, and I said, hey, vet, there was a time I would tell you right now, I'll call you back because it was too fine when I was walking through the lobby. I'm no longer interested. Because I should have been married by now. You know what I mean? So now I can't afford to have conversations with people because my trust level is so low. You know, everybody's an enemy to me now. I don't trust nobody but my mama, and I'm watching her with one eye. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? And so now we live in this generation now, everybody's calling each other bro and sis. No, I just know you. Man, I've had too many windows open, in my life, and I've been loose, and there's nowhere in the Bible that tells people that they have to stay under a pastor that's not living right.
Wow.
The Bible says this, that if you walk up right before him, no good thing will he withhold from you. So I'm laying in the bed one night, and I go to that text, and I was like, man, my life ain't that bad. So I started thinking, well, if I change my walk, how much more will he do? I mean, I'm looking good now. I'm dressed, I'm wearing what everybody else wearing. How much more will God do for you that if you just looked at your life and said, no, I'm not doing bad, but what can you tighten up? Because we live now, nobody is impressed no more with the young preacher taking over, because they always find a way to mess it up.
I think you need to say that again.
Yeah, yeah. You can be a young preacher, take over. You know what I mean? Cool. And you know what? They'll come. The day that he hands you the baton, more people come immediately. It's just the nature. Think about it. Salem Baptist Church in Chicago, Senator James Meeks
That's a real life.
just within the last 2 weeks passed the baton to Charlie Dates.
Yes.
Charlie Dates pastors the Progressive Baptist Church less than 3 miles away. But when he hit that platform, the sanctuary is full for the last 2 to 3 weeks. Young preachers is always going to bring another group of people. But then there's also some that's sitting, well, so-and-so went to such and such church and they pat that out, look now. So you have to be a person now. You got the doctrine, you got the teaching. Lifestyle is what's gonna draw. I promise you. Nobody is moved by who's the greatest preacher no more. Trust me. And if we was on my page, I'll drop names. But since I'm with him, he don't play that. He editing that all out. But you get what I'm saying, though.
Yes, sir.
Nobody's moved, man. And I've been watching you like the past, year or so, man. Like, man, I know he loves this church. He has to. He's paid too much into it. He's given too much of his life, his whole family. He couldn't be at all the basketball games for Zach because he was doing this. My daughter don't want to come with me on the road preaching no more. I done everything. I offered her everything to be here this weekend, but $1,000. Everything. Get your own room. Order what you want. We go shopping. Nah, I don't want. Because I gave my life to this. You see what I'm saying? And so for a person that gave his life to something, to say that this is the one, you hear me? That he must really have a lot of faith because he loves these people. He has taught at this church with no music. People have walked out, people have left, people have said things but stood, and now he says that you're the one. That's major. That people may take that lightly, and he's not doing it because you're the first young person been here. And I'm telling you, 2007, brother, they was coming in here in droves. You hear me? But there's something had to be about your heart. And I'm just telling you this, man. If you want to know what it looks like to fail, let me tell you something. I used to give Keon Henderson the ideas. We sit on the phone 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. He made decisions differently. I say he more gifted. He was more sound in his decisions, in spending money, not just dealing with women and power and prestige and popularity. No, he watched his credit.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. I remember the day. Yeah.
I remember just hearing him talk about that, and I don't want that on my credit. I'm like, man, get the phone. You see what I'm saying? Man, and you not starting in a storefront, you've been given a mansion. And it don't happen like this often. And I'm telling you, man, if you humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, I'm telling you, he'll exalt you. And I'm telling you, you're being exalted now as we speak. And I'm proud of you, honestly. Young people that's just trying to do it the right way, I'm proud. I came in his man's office when I was I was a kid. And I knew I didn't want to be here because I said, I pastor, I preach. He said, threw me a Bible and said, preach me a sermon. I ran up out of here. I didn't see him for another 12 years. And he ain't had much. He just had the building down the street and just moved in here. And I was impressed because he used to teach Bible study in McDonald's. You remember that?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm saying, man, you've been given, this is like, you got schools up in here and all of that, but all of this, it don't mean nothing. People are not following you, they're following your faith and your life. Trinae Jordan, your grandfather in the ministry. I'll say this and I'm done. I said to him the other day, I said, man, you know my problem with you? He said, what? I said, you don't never congratulate me. I said, you don't never tell me good job. I'm going in on him. Because me and DeJuan, his daughter, we just talked about he done became mean lately. And I said, you don't never, he said, see, your problem is you want me to be your fan. I ain't a fan, I'm your father. He said, my job for you is different with my job from this one. He said, I'm not fanning you. I ain't doing all that. He said, I'm telling you, get yourself together. And I said, hey, I'm in a situation right now, Jack. I said, man, I didn't do it. He said, but your name is there. I said, no, I'm telling you, I just told you what happened. He said, you've been telling me what happened for the past 30 years. I used to walk to school with his kids. You see what I'm saying, man? So I'm right this time, he ain't impressed. He ain't impressed, and I'm right this time. No, sir, get it together. Call me later.
Wow. I appreciate your candor.
Yes, sir.
And your honesty. And I don't think there's anywhere else to go from there. You know, I would ask you in a minute or two, hearing this entire conversation, but hearing specifically, particularly what Pastor Lynch has shared with you, what is the feeling?
It's a feeling of validation, not from a success standpoint, but from the things that you've already planted. I'm almost positive you remember this. This was 2-3 sermons in, and
Your sermon?
yeah, 2 or
Okay.
3 sermons in, and I get off the stage. I think you might have been sick the night before, so you called. No, this might have been 5 or 6 in, and you were sick the night before, and you called me late Saturday night. You called me about 6, 7 o'clock Saturday night. Said I've been in bed all day. I've been in bed since I woke up at 10 o'clock this morning. I've been in bed, and the first thing in my head, I was already scheduled to preach the next Sunday, but the first thing in my head was, well, why you ain't call me at 10 o'clock this morning? And so you was like, it might be on you tomorrow, so I need you to ramp your studying up. And so I came in the next day. You weren't supposed to be here, but you needed to say something to the congregation, so you came, but I preached. And after the sermon, you pulled me in the office. You said, I want to tell you one thing. I don't want to tell you nothing about the sermon. I don't care nothing about the sermon. You ain't gonna ever have a problem preaching. That's embedded in you from your mama and daddy, and you a studier of the word. You're not gonna ever have a problem coming up with a message. Your problem is going to be what happens in between the lines. You told me, Jack, it ain't about Sunday mornings. It's about what you do in between Sunday to Sunday. That's going to define your ministry. And if you aren't living your life holy, no matter what you do on that stage, it's going to come back to get you. And so when I hear him speak, when I hear him give me his story and tell me where he went wrong and how not to go that way, I hear him saying the same thing you did, was you got to live holy. And the Bible specifically tells us that pastors have to live above reproach. And so when I hear him talk, when I hear him give me his encouragement, his words of wisdom, I hear the word validation. You have to live your life holy.
I thank both of you for being here, and I think that God is going to use these two programs in a tremendous way. I think they have longevity attached to them. And I think that you don't have to be in the pulpit in order to glean the truth that you all have discussed here today. Pastor Lynch, I appreciate your candor and your honesty, and I especially appreciate it in this context and you opening up and sharing with Jack. I love you both. I believe in you both. I want to see both of you function at the top of your game, for lack of a better term. Amen. And I believe that God has a tremendous future for both of you, in spite of whatever mistakes you've made along the way. You know, I listened to Michael Jordan talk about Dennis Rodman the other day, and I'm going to close with this. And Michael Jordan, in the interview, he was asked about Dennis and Dennis leaving the team and going to Vegas. And as a result of that, Phil, when they brought him back from Vegas and got him back, Phil says, this is going to be the practice. I want everybody to outrun him, outpace him around this track, to wear him out for spending all that time in Vegas. And so they started off running, and next thing you know, Dennis had outlapped all of them. And they had to work to catch up with him. They end up more wore out trying to implement what Phil's strategy was to punish Dennis. They the one end up punishing because Dennis was in shape. And this is what Michael Jordan said. He said, well, we didn't realize that Dennis was all right. He just needed to get away. And once he got away, he came back stronger than he was, I'm paraphrasing, than when he left. Yeah. And this is what I gleaned from that. We all have the propensity to do something or things that don't fit the divine narrative that God has for us. But God has a way of bringing us back. Yeah. And said, he got away. He got by, but he didn't get away. He's still my son. And I still have much for him to do. And I think that's at the heart of both of you all's life. And it's just privileged to sit where I've sat and watch you all do the things that you have done and to anticipate the things that you shall do. I pray that you have gleaned something from this as well. Very rarely in a public setting, on a stage like this, do men in general, black men particularly, if you would, open themselves up to their vulnerabilities, their highs, their lows, successes, failures, etc. And whether you're in ministry or not, I believe that the truth that these two men have shared here today is beneficial to you as well as it has been for me. Here's what I believe about it. I believe that this conversation today has been divined by God to make you fearless, intentional, and transformational. And it's been my privilege to be a part of that narrative to get you there. I'm Anthony Payton, pastor, teacher of Come As You Are Community Church. May God bless you till we get together again. Thank you.